Namaskar and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sattology Debunking Mythology. Sat means truth and logos means a study or science. Sattology means a study or science of truth, but nothing truth. We also say Satya Mev Jayate. Satya Evam Jayate. Satya Mev Jayate. Truth always wins. And this is our endeavor that despite being colonialists or faith-based colonialists, attacking Sanatan Dharma with the term mythology, which always means myth means a fake lie imagination, is a Sanskrit dhatu from which other words come: mithya, mithya ahankar, mithyachar. So all this comes from the Sanskrit dhatu called myth. And mitho abhipetya grihavartarnam, Srimad Bhagavatam shlokas you must have heard. So myth is the dhatu for a lie or fake imagination. And very cleverly, the faith-based colonialists, they connected with logos and invented the term mythology to prove to the followers of Sanatan Dharma that their culture has no scientific basis, no historical truth, and no archaeological basis. But we have disproved it. We have disproved Aryan origin theory. We have disproved Ramayana Mahabharata as mythology. All those facts are always there. So without delay, today we have a very famous author, a great friend, and personally a follower as well, a personal follower of Sanatan Dharma. And with a deep background of traditions. He published a book called Gita Comes Alive, and that has become extremely famous with many intelligent people, intellectuals, you can say. And without delay, we will welcome Sri Jeffrey Armstrong.
Namaste, Adi, and everyone. Pleasure to be with you today. Very important topic. So lead the way, Adi.
So recently there were many attacks on the followers of Sanatan Dharma by various organizations, and it was told to me, and I don't know these organizations at all. So with the disclaimer, I'll take the names: Equality Labs and many other organizations, including the California Student Association. And they talked about equating race with caste. Now, both are Western terms. And so we will first, go into the word caste and race first, because casta, you and I have already discussed in earlier show. It's a Portuguese term. And you gave a very good retort to that. You said, where did the word come from? And it's not Indian word. So we will talk about race, caste, and then we'll come to jati and varna also in this session itself, so that the people who are from the culture, they understand the difference as well. So what do you think is the caste conundrum according to the West?
Well, the first thing is we have to start out with a correct definition of the Vedic civilization. The Vedic civilization is one where everyone is told you're an individual. You came to this realm of matter by choice, and no one can go with you or help you when you transition from one life to the next. But you're in charge of this amazing journey that you're on. So you're an epic hero. By contrast, Western civilization gives everyone one life, whether it's a scientific or religious viewpoint, and essentially terrifies them with the promise of torture in the future if they don't do everything right this lifetime. So the entirety of Western civilization and of the Abrahamic religions have a horrible paradigm of one lifetime only, and this is to terrify people, or they really believed it and were ignorant. I'd rather even think psychologically they used it to terrify everyone to get them to do what they wanted. The Vedic civilization says we're immortal beings. We are not anything material. We're wearing that like you wear clothing. So now ask yourself, would any intelligent person tell the person you're your shirt? Oh, so Jeffrey Armstrong, you're a blue, huh?
I'm also blue today, dark blue.
Yeah, look, we got a couple of blues. So the Reds hate us. The red shirt people go, hate those blues, got to get rid of them. That's caste, ladies and gentlemen. It's that stupid. It's that stupid to tell anyone you are your clothing, you are your skin, you are your paint job, you are your ideas. None of the above. We are the consciousness inhabiting this body, and that is the only view that allows us to show respect to one another consistently as the basis of how we see each other.
You know, another word which is used extensively today, because we are talking about racial equality. And we also spoke last time, one of the things we spoke, that the race has nothing to do with varna or the category of people, but race and caste is being equated now. So the racial discrimination and caste discrimination, and that too being spoken in American universities, where,
Mhm.
so in a way they are also introducing these terms also. So it's good for us. So any controversy is also a good propaganda. So they, so I
I love
see.
it when people prove that they're ignorant because it's easier to show them then. So academia, which should be literate and should use language correctly, is
Correct.
proved themselves to be a dunce in this regard, which means they're clearly being manipulated by people with an alternative motivation and not truth tellers. That's for sure.
No, you brought a great point, alternative motivation, and which is, I always say that it is a foreign induced. How, why will again, for people, I'm not talking about targeting any particular community, but why will a person not from Sanatan Dharma talking about Sanatan Dharma? It's like as if I start talking about Islam. I have no knowledge of Islam. And I start talking about Islam or Christianity, which I do not have possess that knowledge. I'm not from that background. So why will I talk about somebody else's faith in a derogatory way when I don't understand it? So, but here you see and I will target California State Student Association, which is a student body for the California state, talking about Indian caste system, that to a Palestinian Muslim talking about Indian caste system. I think that there's alternative motivation right there. So what do you have to say on that?
Well, Adi, let's take it back to the original place where these lies came from. So, the first thing everyone needs to keep in mind is that North America, the United States, and the government that was created at the formation of it as a country, the civilization that was a group of people at that time from Europe who were stealing the land of everyone who'd been peacefully living on North America for thousands of years. They came there specifically to steal the land. So, what we've been calling democracy is simply the arrangement they made to divide the stolen goods between all of the people who were there. And it was supposed to be a way of cooperating, but what no one knows is that democracy, as the United States is practicing, was given to them by the Iroquois Confederation, who live in the New York, what is now the New York area. And 13 members of their tribe came to the settlers and said, "We see that you're very crazy and chaotic. We're going to give you our rules of democracy so you can cooperate without having wars over the rules of daily conduct." This is where our so-called democracy came. But it never became a democracy. It was still always colonization by competition. So I want everyone to understand clearly, US does not have a democracy and never did. It's simply a colonizing government disguised in some words that were given them by the people they colonized. And it has never been a colonizing, it's a competitive civilization and a colonizing civilization, and it has never been a democracy where every citizen has equal rights. Never been. It's all by privilege and power.
No, one thing that struck me, and I am a relatively, you are born here, you have lived here, you know much more about the society from inside, and I have migrated here. Now, I one thing that struck me about healthcare in the society, healthcare is a privilege, whereas in the Vedic society, healthcare is a right. Everyone has a right. So this is adhikar. Adhikar is the right word. over there. So adhikar, everyone to maintain their health is adhikar, and right is something is given, not you don't deserve it, but I have given you. But who is somebody else to give me the right to maintain my own health?
Wonderful, Adi. So let's make two words be our juxtaposition here. One is colonizing, the other is cooperating. The Vedic civilization is a cooperating society. India and all the indigenous peoples had two forms of cooperation in mind, with nature and with each other. And they had all decided, and this is called Dharma in the Sanskrit of Bharat, they'd all decided that we must do two things to survive and be happy. Cooperate with the laws of nature, the Sat that Adi has named this show after, and then the Svad, the Dharma, the Sanatan Dharma that's always true. And then, because each individual is unique, we have to find a way to get unique individuals to work together cooperatively, not competitively. And this culture of America is completely competitive. It's still colonizing the world. It's colonizing and competitive with each other. It doesn't give things easily to everyone because it doesn't hold that as its viewpoint. And it doesn't see that we're all immortal beings going from life to life. It doesn't grant that to everyone. It's based on a sectarian religious viewpoint, a blind faith religion. So it's very important. I'll just wrap this up with cooperating society or colonizing society. Don't use caste ever as a word until you tell me what the basis of the society is.
The great points, and I think what you told me that right now, even I did not know something new you told me, and thank you for that, Jeffrey. So another point which comes to my mind is the like you said, cooperating and coexisting. Now this has never been the hallmark in the Western history. We have never seen that. We have seen France competing with Portugal, Portuguese competing with British, or French competing with British, Portuguese competing with Germans, and Germans, Germans, we all know the German history, that they are competing with Austria and other countries over there, and always been, and the Scandinavian countries always maintain their individual identity. And so what so that culture of like that's how they all divided this land, United States today, and Canada and Mexico, amongst each other. The French
All
were
right.
given the south, northeast was given to the English. And then there's another thing which came: the 13 states colonized California. That was also a talk over there. So what I'm trying to say is that the competition in Europe was put into the other lands also. Yeah. So what do you have
All
to
right.
comment on that?
So, Adi, it was not a cooperation in Europe. It was a dictatorship known as the Pope. Now, this is very important, and most people and most institutions are afraid to teach this. But the Pope was, and I had a professor of religious studies at UC Santa Cruz who understood this very deeply and showed it and shared it with all of us. The Roman Empire, when it switched over to the Catholic Church, was the same empire, the same philosophy, disguised as a religion. And hence, the Holy Roman Empire is a justification for the Roman Empire, which colonized by military and building roads. They had no higher ideals. They colonized everyone and controlled everyone, and the Pope simply replaced the Roman emperor. And that is what was ruling Europe and fragmented into the Protestant Reformation during the time of Henry VIII. Germans led the Protestant Reformation. German is based upon Sanskrit. And the Latin-based languages of Europe, Portugal, Spain, French, and then English, were the main competitors. And the fragmentation of that domination of the Pope happened at the same time that all those European countries had hungry, even enslaved people from Ireland and other places that went to this new land to get their share of the land. It was a land grab. It was not a democracy ever. And only the First Nations in America introduced them to the concept of democracy, not the Greeks, because the Greeks never really had one either. So this is the missing part of history that no one in our culture has been taught, because it's not in the best interest of Christianity to bring attention to this rift between the Catholic Church and the Protestant Reformation. But when that took place, in the time of Henry VIII, Protestants and anyone opposed to the Catholic Church was being burned at the stake. Is that a democracy?
Great point.
Can that attitude make a democracy?
No, this is the biggest, I think, the lie that we have been told, and we have not seen. So, see, the thing is, the export of democracy has been often interpreted as political control of other lands, because when there is a democracy, because most of the countries, it requires it's a very unmanageable system, pretty much, because it really leads to a lot of chaos, and anyone who has the money can get into the power, and anyone who wants to exploit. At the end of the day, Bhagavad Gita says in the 17th chapter, the demoniac people, the only purpose is artha sanchayan, just collect wealth. And
That's all.
Krishna has said it in the 5,000. So Bhagavad Gita becomes live here again. That it has been already told by Krishna so many times that all the demoniac people, or Rakshasi Pravritti or Danvi Pravritti people, they ultimately, their goal is Artha Sanchayan in the end. And for that, they can do any kind of vikarma or bad actions to destroy.
And this is exactly, Adi, what the Pope did before Columbus went out. So late in the 15th century, in the middle of it, the Pope issued the command, a papal bull, saying, you have the permission of the Pope on behalf of the Catholic Church to go out into the world and colonize and take whatever is there, enslave the people if necessary, rape and pillage, do whatever you must, and then convert them to Christianity and send the wealth back here. And this was the mandate of the Pope of the Catholic Church. So please don't tell me I can't say this because he was religious. That's not religious. That's the most Asuric colonizing attitude one can imagine. And we all need to be honest and say at this point in history, we don't need to get mad at the current church or Catholics or anyone else. We need to know that this is how the problem of ultimate colonization began, in the name of Jesus. And Jesus wouldn't have done it.
You put it so well, because even today, all the dioceses, archbishops, and all those so many fancy titles, their one of the responsibility is to increase their annual contribution to Vatican. I'm talking about Catholics mostly, because other denominations of Christians are not that united, and so the others collect for their own church. But here the entire money from South America. South America is a poor continent now. It was a rich continent before. If you go to Brazil and you see the poverty there, much worse than India. Indians complain about poverty. Go to Brazil and check. They have less population but more poverty.
Absolutely.
And
And
check
the first corporation was the East India Company.
correct.
Let's be clear. What is a corporation? It is profit only motivated. It has a board of directors it's answerable to for profit only. It has a CEO, Chief Executive Officer, a CFO, a Chief Financial Officer. What it does not have is a CCO, a Chief Conscience Officer. So corporations as they exist today are no different than colonization as it's gone on since it was sent out by the Pope. It is still profit and greed oriented.
So when you mention this point now the question of the race. Now, race relations, was it the main reason that racial inequality was established. Bhagavad Gita doesn't say that. Bhagavad Gita said, "Never, nobody is more dear to me. Everyone is equal to me. I don't envy anyone. I don't favor anyone. But one who is my devotee," Krishna says, "I'm especially nice to him." But in the Western concept, there is no such concept there. Like you
Well,
said in the earlier show, that we had an envious
yes.
God. So
So
this
Adi,
is
I
the
have a
beginning.
theory.
Yeah.
I have a theory about this that at a certain point in their history, because Judaism didn't do this, but groups within Islam took over Islam. So let's be clear. All of the religions have truth in them to some degree, and they gathered those truths along the Silk Road at a time when the knowledge of India and China were exchanging for thousands of years before Europe existed as we know it. So those people learned and got truths. So there's truth in all religion. But what's done in the name of religion is not truth. And this is where the confusion is. People think, oh, he's speaking against religion. No, I'm not. I'm speaking against the abuse of religion for exploiting the world and being violent. And this is what Islam and Christianity did. And this is what started creating the worst chaos in India and elsewhere, is that it was done with implacable violence, worse even than the Romans. But they learned from the Romans how to do this. They went out, dominated everyone, took everything, enslaved everyone. And unless you became Muslim or Catholic, then you were denied the rights of a human being and called persona non grata. You look like a person, but you're an animal. This is the ultimate slavery system. This is worse than caste. This is, you don't exist as a human till we say so, and our religion is in charge of the entire process. And this is toxic Islam and toxic Christianity.
And we see that going on. And when in the campus, people equate race relations with caste, which is again Europe. So they're comparing two European terms. Now they're
Right.
not even connecting with Sanatan Dharma. They're talking two European terms. And the one of the petitioners is a converted Christian from India. And generally it is known when somebody is converted, they are more fanatic about their new faith
Of
because they have
course.
to justify to the people of the new community they're going to. And plus they have to show to them how virulent you are. So I think that has also been the implantations. And also another term is being used is inculturation, where you, like in India, we have seen so many Christians wearing saffron cloths and doing the Prabhat Peri, which was Harinam before. Now they carry the cross and they have converted bhajans also in that area. In the West also, the same things were done to the Native Americans. Exactly the same things were done.
Exactly. All their dignity removed, all of their property taken and stolen to this day. The First Nations people do not have the rights of humans, and they certainly do not have the ancestral rights over their land, because the bottom line here is we're stealing your land and we're making up a philosophy to justify it. And we're using religion to justify stealing everything. And I want this to be so clear to everyone. I have a degree in comparative religion. I have dear friends in every so-called religion in the world, but certainly in Islam and Judaism and Christianity. So this is not against those sincere, truth-seeking, honor and love-seeking people. This is about the abuse of that throughout history to destroy and enslave. And it's an enslavement that hasn't stopped. It's still going on. And it has to be identified and pointed to in history and where we are now, without us creating conflict with genuinely religious persons. I honor every one of them. But the persons who, in the name of those truth-seeking traditions, are exploiting the world and people, dominating and making up despicable philosophies to confuse everyone, those are what we in the Veda call asura, against the light.
Very well put. And I feel that, and just a discussion with all of you, and I know all of you loving it. I see so many thumbs up there. Now, the one of the things is about the race relations is It is based on the anthropological idea of a human psychotomy, and which is at a human level is very low in many ways, because now you are saying that just because I have a brown skin and you have a white skin, we can never intermingle. That's what you're saying, literally, with the race theory, and we cannot converse on any point. Whereas the Sanatan Dharma is based on your character, and your behavior, and your qualities and your actions. Two vastly different terms. In the Sanatan Dharma, Atri Rishi is said to be meditating in the Alps. He has a white complexion, and he's so the theory was built up just because we are better looking than you. Now that is also a relative term, because some people, it's a based on the regions. So somebody for some people, beauty may not be exactly what you look at it, but
All right.
superimposing. Yes, go ahead, please.
So let's drill down on this.
Yeah.
In the United States, here's what happened. First, everyone came over and thought, okay, we're stealing the land. Good, we have a right to. We got sent over here by the Pope. Next, they dominated the entire culture with what? Gunpowder. If if they didn't have superior weaponry, they couldn't have dominated. There was no moral dominance. There was no higher ideals. It was completely to be dominating by force. So now, picture this. So just as the, the colonies are trying to make a government, the Iroquois Confederation comes and gives them democracy. They didn't have it before. They had monarchy. And so they looked at that and said, yeah, this will work. This way we can cooperate with each other, and the states can have rights and the government can have rights over that. And we'll get everyone to cooperate with this. But we only have one big problem. And that is there's 5 million black people we already bought. Listen carefully. We already bought 5 million black people to work the sugar cane, tobacco, and cotton crops in the South, because no white person wants to be enslaved in that horrible work. And we can't make enough profit if we don't use slaves to do it. So when democracy started in the United States, there were 5 million black slaves brought here by Christians in ships. And they had 3 choices. Send them back to Africa, and their answer was too expensive. Second, this was east of the Mississippi. Second was send them west of the Mississippi and give them some land. And the answer there was, no, we want all the land. We don't want to give any away. And so they were at an impasse. The third view said, if you don't do this, you're going to have the worst possible outcome, because eventually they're going to marry your children. So since the founding of America, the worst fear of the so-called Christian dominators was that eventually their children are going to marry people with the wrong skin color, and that will ruin everything. And that's what we're still in the midst of, but nobody knows the original story. And when I found this out, it was after 30 years of searching to find the truths, and they were brought to me by members of the First Nation, by a chief from the First Nation of the Mohawk, part of the Iroquois Confederation. And then I started searching for the other facts in this. So this is new information. You haven't been taught it. It's going to be shocking, and you have to get the right source materials, but it's the truth. And I can direct you to the documents that prove it. These are the people that told India, you have a caste system. With the same motive in mind, we're going to enslave you, we're going to dominate you, we're going to take everything, which has already pretty much been done, and now we're going to name you despicably, so everyone thinks, oh, well, they deserve it because something was wrong with them.
So the whole fight, beginning from Macaulay's and Max Miller's criminal mistranslations, is all against Sanatan Dharma. It's,
Completely.
it's all about Asura versus Sura. It's the same thing. Dharma versus Adharma. It's the same thing coming down to.
It's the Mahabharata gone to the whole world. It's one side, Dhritarashtra. It took me years to understand this. Dhritarashtra means blinded by the land. Dhritarashtra was blinded by the land. And Duryodhana means dirty fighter, meaning adharmic fighter or asura. And Yudhishthir fights with Dharma, means stands for Dharma even while fighting, doesn't rape, doesn't pillage, isn't despicable, and doesn't enslave people by skin color or enslave them at all, ever. No dharmic person ever enslaved anyone.
No, the governance of Yudhishthir, I have documented in my book, The Greatest
You wrote a
Empire.
book about this. Yes, tell us.
And in that book, he has known to use Lokatantra. Now, Bhishma discusses Lokatantra with Satyavati, that for a Raja, for a king, it is important to follow Lokatantra. And Lokatantra means organizing governance in such a way that there are independence at every level. And the only binding factor is Dharma, that the leaders of the society, and that's how he was able to govern the whole world literally. And I documented that well, that he was able to govern from far stretches of the society. And all the wars that he fought, now people accuse also that he also fought wars, big wars. I said, yes, he fought wars to bring peace and justice to the society. Most of the people were peaceful for hundreds of years until the colonization started. Before that, the society was far more peaceful, and that was a result of the original Mahabharat war. And you will not see disturbance in the society. There was a free movement, free trade, because that was all established by Mahabharat war. And that's why you can see that all the kings who would create so much disturbances were wiped out in that war. That was the reason of Dharma Samsthapanarthaya Sambhavami Yuge Yuge. This is what exactly happened. Now, so when people translate democracy as Lokatantra, how factually incorrect is that? You just explained just now that Lokatantra and democracy, what you explained, democracy is a foundation of exploitation, whereas Lokatantra is the real rule of the people and electing qualified people to lead them. So when we say race relations and caste, equate them, where is the Western folly and what can be the strategy over there
Great.
against that?
Well said, Adi. Now let's tie this in with the next piece, which is look at your body and just ask yourself, which part of it would you like to cut off at the end of this talk? I just want you to contemplate removing an arm or cutting off your head or cutting off your legs or shooting yourself in the belly. Why? Well, because it's got a problem. So it's got a problem. So let's just get rid of that. Let's get rid of our arms or get rid of our head. Now, the Vedic civilization was explained to the world by the British who were destroying it. But basically, it's called the social body. You've heard the term. You studied sociology. The social body comes from Bharat. The social entity, all the population is a body. There's a head because the head has to think. So that's the so-called Brahmins. But do you cut off your legs because you're the head? Or would you all die? All die. So think of the whole society. The Vedic viewpoint is how is the whole society doing? So there's a head, there's protectors, there's producers, farmers and merchants and people like that. Then there's providers of functions. There's people who provide a service of some kind. There's a wonderful person who comes every week to Sandy and I, and every 3 weeks, and does our nails. We have other wonderful friends who do our hair. We have other friends who help and come and clean. Now, are those lower castes? No. Those are people who we love, who are our friends. They're part of our body. They're part of society. They're dear to us. Do we say to them, oh no, you're the legs, I can't talk to you. Oh no, you're this, you're this. It's absurd to think that. So that's called caste. But what Varna is when someone is growing up, they're educated in the skill set that suits their temperament so that they love their job for the rest of their life. And then, like in our body, there's a code for the head, there's a code for the stomach, there's a code for the muscles and arms, biological code. If the body doesn't function and cooperate, we die. The body dies. So this is the missing discussion that Bharat knew, India, and all the indigenous cultures discussed this in some way, how to socialize and cooperate, and that everyone was better at a function, but it didn't make them better than everyone else. It made them love everyone else like we love our whole body and not just parts. So it's insane to say, I hate my legs or I hate my arms and their function. In the Vedic culture, everyone in the social body mattered and everyone had a place and everyone was honored as an immortal being.
Discrimination never existed in a society which follows Varnashram, because Varnashram, like you said, very eloquently described, very eloquently, and you explained very well that it's the body of the society. And I've heard from many important people that Sanatan Dharma is implemented with this social concept, Varnashram. Both are interrelated concept. One, Varnashram is the application, and Sanatan Dharma is the philosophy. So both are internally related. So when we with these foolish people, I would say, when they start equating race with caste, so what they're actually talking the same thing, exploitation, because
Absolutely.
they want to control the rest of the people, so that the only purpose is wealth, nothing else. And
And wealth by exploitation. So let's add one more equation here. And this is all the creatures. Think of all the creatures on the planet. If I haven't seen very many interesting human selfies, I've seen thousands of wonderful animal selfies. I'm a great fan of all the creatures. Aren't you? So what do you think? We should treat them despicably and just lock them in buildings and grow them only to eat them? Or should they have a life? What do you think? Is nature biodiverse or just
I lost you, Jeffrey, a little bit.
That's
You
okay.
uh,
Somebody didn't like what I was saying. The next step of colonization is the removal of biodiversity so that we don't have friendly relations with all creatures on the planet. And this is the Vedic. I learned this from the Vedic culture. I learned to destroy that biodiversity from being born in America. Let's be clear.
so one of the things that you mentioned very accurately, that when all the humans are born in USA, we call them American citizens. So, and we give them a passport, they have a right for a passport. What about animals and birds? If we are really talking about democracy and rights, equal rights, they also have the rights because they are born here. So any flora, fauna, or vegetation, human beings, everybody is born here. And the classification of races and the equating race with caste, both European terms, nothing to do with India, because in India there is called jati and yoni and varna, and they all three different meanings of that. So so the species exist everywhere. Vedic scriptures say 400,000 species of humans are there in on this planet and other planets also. But there is never distinguishing between the social structure. Social structure is equality is for all. You can come, when the Jews were kicked out from Germany, where did they come? India.
And yeah,
When the Parsis were kicked out from Iran by the Islamic invaders, where did they come to? India. Tell me which country people have been kicked out. They all came to one country, that is India. Why? Because they were hopeful they'll get justice over there. And therefore the colonizers, I call them faith-based colonizers, they wanted to destroy the culture of India so that they can change this nature, so that they can use the Indian resources and Indian people as one of their fodder for their own mental brains. So it has
I'm glad you said that, Adi. Let me just say, because resources, if a human who's thoughtful and and compassionate would not think of animals as resources, but as beings like themselves having a life.
correct.
In Western civilization, everything is a resource except me. And the rest is just to be used as I want. It's just so despicable.
They have introduced a very fanciful term now. They call it human capital. Now, human capital management. And it was initially human resources management, became human capital, and somewhere now people management also. Now, if you look at these, all the three words have the same meaning, that a body is for them to consume or take their time. Like there is a very asuric philosophy, is that I am buying your time. I have never seen in any of the scriptures I have read now, Ramayana, Mahabharata, I have read it thoroughly. I have never seen Dashrath Maharaj or Yudhishthir asking anyone to buy your time. They request your presence. They say,
And your service and your seva of your ability.
and gratitude is at every level. Coming Sri Ram coming down to Guya and embracing him. And he says, thank you for giving me your boat, for making me cross the Ganges. Now, this is a thank you, deep thank you. So
All right, Adi, so I'm sorry, we have to tie this to one thing here.
yeah,
So right now, the last step of that colonization, of that attitude, is the destruction of biodiversity. Right now, people like Bill Gates are advocating a complete destruction of agriculture as a human task and substituting machines only. This is the final destruction of what? Of your belly. This is the destruction of your food chain by chemicalizing it, and the people who should be raising the animals, raising the food in smaller plots of personalized agriculture, where it's a function. What they're doing is destroying one of the three functions of the body, which is essentially the belly, which everything else, because an army moves on its belly. So if this is accomplished, the ultimate colonization will be the removal of humans from their relation with plants and animals, and robots will make food, and we will become robots.
that's a long-term plan. We also see that many states in the US have banned personal agriculture in your backyard. It is somehow the regulatory bodies like FDA and other people, they are regulating what you can grow in your backyard, what you cannot grow. And the plants which are being sold in the nurseries today, they are chemically and genetically modified so that they don't produce a second plant, don't produce seeds. And it is remarkable that you say that, because and ultimately even the vaccination was to be digitized, so that if somebody goes out of turn, then chemically they can introduce you through a software, so that you are actually functioning. And I don't see there is an end to it, because somehow we all have to rise up in many ways and question it. Those of you who are watching the videos, this is one of the best discussions I ever had on this channel, and I must say that. So
Adi, what you just said, I just want to add one thing. There is so much research now. Look up a couple named Ty and Charlene. They've just done a huge documentary series on natural healing, because the subject we're touching on here is, again, the body. So what is the natural healing process by which we cooperate with the plants of nature? And one more piece, and this is the psychosomatic part, where we know how to blend our consciousness with the higher intelligences of nature. And that's called yoga. You can call it religion, but yoga means even nature, every aspect of nature The so-called gods are the many voices of nature and functions of nature. We're supposed to talk to them and cooperate with them and listen to them. We're not supposed to view them as the ultimate reality. We're supposed to work with them in life. And this ability to work with each other, with the forces of nature, and to use natural healing and remedies, all of those are being destroyed by the FDA, by the pharmaceutical companies, by all the companies that are making us into their chattel and their animals. And in COVID, in the name of the problem of a disease, the cause of this has been advanced horribly. But what it has done is brought to everyone's attention who's thoughtful that the health of my lifestyle is critical. And now this is a moment where we can restore Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, homeopathy, naturopathy, and add that to allopathy as a medical system. So many wonderful people are allopaths, but the pharmaceutical and chemical companies are using that to dominate the world. And not everyone understands this. So these issues are coming out right now. And thank you, Adi, for having this show to let this happen.
You made great points. A lot more can be spoken, and but we're running out of time. So viewers who watched it and who loved this session will continue this session discussion next week as well, and so that we can go deeper into these topics. And me and Jeffrey will come up with a succeeding topic on this one, and we'll discuss it again. But thank you all for listening. And today's topic was race relations and caste, and also differentiating that with the dharmic view of the world. Thank you all for watching, and namaskar. Thank you. And do get that book, gitacomes alive.com. And also, if you want to search on Sattology on Amazon, you'll see all the 7 books that I have published so far. Namaskar.
Namaskar to everyone.